Top 5 Most Dangerous Cities in the World. Traveling the whole world sounds like a pretty great idea, right? The experiences, the culture, and of course, existing in a completely new place with completely new people. While packing up your bags and going around the world is definitely worth it, the question most travel enthusiasts forget to consider is whether or not a place is safe, which is why we're giving you a roundup of the world's top 5 most dangerous cities so you know which places to avoid while making plans for your next vacation. Number 5. Cape Town, South Africa. South Africa is a pretty famous spot for tourists. With the country's warm climate and plenty of sunny days, it makes for a great getaway with friends, family, or even with your own self. However, if there's one place you want to steer away from in South Africa, it's Cape Town. Cape Town is the 3rd most populated city in South Africa's urban areas, which is exactly why this specific city has an incredibly high unemployment rate, which has of course led to poverty taking over in Cape Town. As a result, the city has become home to all sorts of violent crimes, including theft, murder, and gang violence. And this has affected not only the city, but also the areas around it. In fact, Cape Flats, a township southeast of Cape Town, has one of the highest murder rates in the area. Locally known as the Flats, this is the area that sees the most violence and crime. This sandy expanse to the southeast of the Central Business District is definitely a spot you don't want to visit. Sadly, it's been called the apartheid dumping ground because of all the poverty and social problems that have allowed gangs to take over the area, all because of governmental neglect. Other townships, including Manenberg, see a lot of gang activity, which includes drug trafficking, crimes like ATM theft, tour guide scams, and criminals impersonating the police are usually targeted towards tourists, while the residents have to deal with much deeper-rooted issues like drugs and gang wars. For the period of April 2018 to March 2019, about 21,022 murders have been recorded in the city. This means that on an average, a total of 57 people are murdered here every day. And if that's not enough to keep you away from ever visiting, I honestly don't know what is. Number 4. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. While Rio de Janeiro is one of the most popular tourist spots, most people don't realize how unsafe the place actually is. Now, you might be wondering, doesn't Rio have bright, colorful festivals all year long? How can a city like that be dangerous? Well, that's exactly why it is. Because of these festivals, crimes like pickpocketing and theft have become extremely common in Rio. The beaches are also pretty unsafe, with robbers regularly catching people, especially tourists, off guard and stealing all their belongings. Crimes like drug dealing, vandalism, assault, and armed robbery have risen by huge percentages in Rio over the past few years. Overall, the crime rates in Rio have increased by 81.3%, and currently the city has a total crime rate of 90.4%, which just goes to show that Rio isn't the paradise all of us think it is. In fact, tourists are actually encouraged to remove their jewelry and valuables while they're out in the city to avoid any inconvenient situations. It's also recommended to not go to the beaches once it's dark, because that's when the crime really starts hitting the streets. Poorer areas of Rio, like the shanty towns, have the highest crime rates in the city, where tourists have actually been shot when they enter the place. Armed clashes and shootouts between the police forces and gangs are a regular and unpredictable occurrence. There is a risk of violence spilling over into nearby areas, including those popular with tourists. There have been injuries and deaths as a result of stray bullets in and near favelas. Doesn't look like a very good tourist spot now, does it? With tons of protests and riots happening in these places all the time, Rio is generally a pretty unsafe place, no matter how fun it might seem. Number 3. Baltimore, USA. Baltimore has the highest population in the state of Maryland, and while there's no denying that the city has a lot to offer, it's also by far one of America's deadliest cities because plenty of areas in the city are home to all kinds of violent crimes. On an average, Baltimore has a crime rate of 18.7 per 1,000 citizens, which means that one's chance of becoming a victim of either violent or property crime here is 1 in 16, and that's not a pretty number. The violent crime rate is one of the highest in the nation. A lot of the violence in Baltimore's worst neighborhoods is related to gangs and drugs. More than 20% of Baltimoreans live in poverty, which is why the city holds the numbers for the largest amount of robberies in the whole nation. These violent offenses tracked included rape, murder, and non-negligent manslaughter, armed robbery, and aggravated assault, including assault with a deadly weapon. And of course, poverty and crime go hand in hand, which explains why Baltimore's poverty rate is over 23.1%, which prompts people to join gangs, deal drugs, and become robbers to survive. The city has also seen a lot of protests and unrest because of police brutality, along with regular incidents of property crime like vehicle theft and in some cases, even arson. Number 2. Kabul, Afghanistan. Kabul is one of the most dangerous cities in the world with a crime rate of 81%. According to the security forces data, 523 people in Kabul were killed and 638 wounded last year alone. According to reports, police have arrested 128 suspected thieves in Kabul over the past month, and most of them were just boys. The reason behind Kabul being on the list is of course the fact that the city is an active war zone, which leads people to fall into all sorts of dangerous things, and in fact, the kidnappings and murders of influential businessmen have forced many traders to leave the country for a better future. And the presence of terrorist organizations like ISIS and the Taliban makes Kabul an extremely volatile city to be in, where violent crimes can break out any moment. Because of the continuing war in the country, the city is often the target of terrorist acts by insurgents. The city has been badly damaged during the various 1979 to 2001 wars, particularly its western parts, which harbor a lot of these dangerous crimes. Which is why a lot of countries have the city on their travel warning lists because of all the terrorist activity that goes on in Kabul. And number 1, Caracas, Venezuela. At first glance, Caracas looks like a regular old city with great food and drinks, along with exciting tourist spots like art museums. However, as great as it is, Caracas is one of the most dangerous cities in the whole world because of all the crimes that goes on in the city. In fact, Caracas has a murder rate of 111 in 100,000 people, which is a pretty dangerous number to say the least. Despite being considered an important cultural, economic, and industrial hub for Latin America, Caracas has been ranked as the world's least livable city in The Economist's Global Livability Index 2019. With the country having one of the highest murder rates in the world, in fact, Caracas is equally as dangerous as active war zones like Afghanistan. So you can imagine how dangerous it is here. The country has one of the top 5 highest per capita murder rates in the world. Kidnappings have increased approximately 50% from 2008 to 2009, and armed robberies are common. Even foreign nationals get kidnapped from homes, hotels, unauthorized taxis, and the airport terminal. And popular tourist attractions, such as the Avila National Park, are also increasingly associated with violent crime. In fact, the UK and US have only recommended essential travel to the city because not just murders, the city is also rampant with drug trafficking, rape, kidnappings, and robberies, making it a country that we'd strongly advise everyone against. And that's a wrap for the top 5 most dangerous cities in the world. Were you planning on vacationing to one of these? Let us know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any videos from us. See you in the next one.